60,000 soldiers. Now there ain't but 20,000 police in the whole town. Can you dig it? Can you dig it? Can you dig it?
Lay 'em down. I got them nights that don't play around. Hit up the bishop.
My name is Osiris, and today on the Culture Report, we're looking at The Warriors, a cult classic game based on a cult classic movie, which was also based on a book that was pretty good. One thing to note about the book and this story overall is that in the original text, the members of the Warriors gang were Black American and Latino people from Coney Island. Now, while the performances of Michael Beck's Swan and James Remar's Ajax are iconic for the film, these are ultimately white actors playing black characters, which, in my opinion, is always harmful when a character's background matters to their place in a story. Another thing to note is that the world of the Warriors seems to operate in some kind of post-racial gang dystopia. The races of the gang members is never explicitly brought up. However, the geography of where someone is from does seem to be the determining factor in what gang a person joins. And so, for example, a member named Cochise was told initially he could not join the Warriors because he is from Harlem. Other than that, race remains unaddressed across adaptations. Now, some of the differences in adaptation between the game and the movie does help to rehabilitate the cultural representation within the story a bit. For one, the game's story focuses mostly on Cleon throughout the first act. Cleon, a black man, is the leader and founder of the Warriors. Spoilers for the movie, but he dies in the first 10 minutes, which I always found to be a letdown. In the game, though, the timeline of the story is pushed back, and we see how Cleon and his right-hand man Vermin started the Warriors. We even get to see all the lead up to the infamous meeting with Cyrus and the Riffs. All of this is mostly seen through Cleon's eyes. We feel the blood, sweat, and tears it took for him to start the gang and for him to build up the gang's reputation. This makes his fate later in the game feel more tragic, as opposed to cheap, like it does in the movie, in my opinion. Most of the original story content comes from new background information that Rockstar wrote for the game. The latter half of the story follows the movie pretty much one-to-one. Cyrus and the Riffs, the biggest gang in the city, want to unite everybody and fight the cops instead of each other. I didn't see it at first, but I really like how Black Panther coded the Riffs are, down to leaders being assassinated. Yeah, Cyrus gets shot during the meeting by a gang called the Rogues, who then successfully place blame on the Warriors. Now, the surviving members of the Warriors end up having to fight their way all the way from the Bronx back to Coney Island. Anybody familiar with modern American gangs may look at the Warriors and become confused, but gangs in the 50s, 60s, and 70s did look, function, and operate like many you see in this game. For example, up until the very early 80s, many gangs in the Northeast and Midwestern cities wore cuts or jackets with their logos on the back. This was not just reserved for bikers like it is nowadays. There also just weren't as many firearms available, which is why combat in the game focuses on brawling and improvised weapons, which was very accurate for the time period. Part of why these earlier street gangs formed comes from the shifting political attitudes and pressures to rapidly desegregate neighborhoods, especially in bigger cities like New York and Chicago. This led to the formation first of white street gangs who fought against desegregation, which then led to the formation of black gangs who would try to protect their neighborhoods from race violence. Pretty soon, most neighborhoods black, white, and minority had their own gangs to sort of patrol and protect each other. Gangs also usually reflected the cultural attitudes of whatever neighborhood they formed in, or they chose some sort of common bonding theme, which is how you see something like motorcycle clubs start to gain prominence. The game does a great job of paying homage to this specific era of gang culture, but it also doesn't glamorize what that looked like in practice. There's tons of fun to be had playing this game. It's one of my favorite brawlers of all time, but it's definitely pretty violent. Murders happen, people are robbed and extorted, and drugs are prominent as a health mechanic. Hello, Max Payne. As gang members, the Warriors participate and encourage all of this negativity while framing their behavior as more noble than their enemies, especially their main rival in Coney Island, the Destroyer Gang. From a pure gameplay standpoint, this is a dynamic 3D brawler with tons of options regarding dispatching enemy gang members. It's mostly melee, but the ability to pick up anything from a crowbar to a trash can contributes to the violent and unpredictable, yet very fun and engaging core combat loop. While I can appreciate the excellent and period-accurate depiction of the Rifts as a powerful, Panther-coded gang, I must also recognize the harmful aspects of the less militant, less organized gangs operating during this time period. The Warriors themselves mainly profit from neighborhood extortion, random theft, and armed robbery, all of which are very destructive practice for a neighborhood. And they do all this while simultaneously proclaiming themselves again to be the main protective force of the neighborhood. Oddly though, when you look at the drugged out gangs like the Destroyers or pimp gangs like the Harlem Boppers, then the open extortion of the Warriors does appear to be a more acceptable form of evil than the alternatives. I can appreciate that the playable gang in this story isn't flooding Coney Island with drugs or trafficking women from their neighborhood into prostitution. I can't ignore the negative impact that extortion, condoned robbery, and unregulated drug use can and will have on this neighborhood over time, though. In-game, there's a certain level of detail paid to accurately capturing both the good and the bad of this time period, including a surprisingly compelling minigame focused on crossing out the street art of enemy gangs, which is just yet another example of how accurate and precise the portrayal of gang politics in this game can be. Now, before making a final assessment, I have to address the game and original story's main antagonists, the Rogues. They were the gang that actually shot Big Guy Cyrus and then blamed it on the Warriors. For a long time, I considered them your typical backdoor gang and never gave them much thought. They were just destroying unity in the streets for the sake of it. But all throughout the game and the movie, the Rogues' street leader, Luther, is talking to somebody on a payphone and explaining his whole scheme to them, and even receiving orders at some point for how to move forward. The main theories about who the Rogues and Luther were reporting to are, number one, the cops, and they were informants. Now, this theory was always interesting to me because if you watch the movie and play the game, you'll notice that Luther shoots Cyrus just as the cops are raiding the meeting. The timing seems a bit convenient. The second theory that I found online is that the mobs and the syndicates mentioned earlier hired the Rogues to kill Cyrus and disrupt his movement. Now, this does make sense because if he were allowed to unify all the gangs, then he would consolidate power and the mobs and syndicates would no longer be able to move as freely. Another theory that I found interesting is that Luther was just the face of the gang that we saw, and that he was on the phone reporting to a higher up member of the Rogues, which further reinforces the idea that they were just a gang that was out to sow chaos, which is truth in television, because there are gangs in the streets who operate similar to that. Now, regardless of which theory is correct, the game's overall depiction of mid-20th century gang culture is scarily accurate and nuanced, even down to the mysterious and sometimes government-influenced downfall of some of the more positive street movements that existed during that time period. So where do the Warriors land on the grading scale? Well, I initially wanted to score them much more negatively based on how their actions will affect their neighborhood over time. But the goal of the Culture Report is to grade games based on how accurate the representation of Black subcultures are across history, not to pass moral judgment on those subcultures. With this in mind, the Warriors lands in the A- category of the representation grading scale.
We didn't land on Plymouth Rock. Plymouth Rock landed on us. Landed right on top of us.
The period accuracy, vibe, and aesthetic, as well as the really fun gang warfare gameplay, makes the overall experience well worth playing. Again, I can't recommend this game enough. But thinking too hard about the robbery, murder, and destruction the Warriors as a gang represents for their neighborhood can and should become an uncomfortable experience for a player. I applaud the game's storytelling and gameplay for that. Games can be thoughtful, and it's great when there is a game that feels like it's in conversation with its audience in that way. The Culture Report judges cultural accuracy, not morality. And this is a really fun, accurate, and compelling gameplay and storytelling experience. But what do you guys think? Comment below, and thanks for watching.
Lay 'em down. I got them nights that don't play around. Hit up the bishop to pray for the sound. We playing chess, we taking the crown. Come to your castle, we breaking it down.